The combination of my grief and the fact that I was also dealing with a lot of other typical adolescent stresses was probably the trigger for a long, difficult period of depression. This lasted for most of my teenage years. I also experienced a couple of negative and damaging relationships, the effects of which had severe repercussions on my mental health, resulting in self-harm, anxiety, and finally, disassociation. It wasn't an easy ride, but with hindsight, I didn't make things easy for myself. My negativity and jealousy were through the roof, I was unkind and confused and didn't really give much thought to anyone else. No wonder I was so unhappy. This period lasted longer than I care to mention, but things did improve. There was no simple fix that stimulated my recovery. It took a long time and a lot of help from many angels. As things did begin to improve, in 2014, I created my first YouTube video, Kylie Jenner Makeup Tutorial. As you can see, my content has changed direction slightly. I started going out more and began to try to find a purpose. Obviously, life still had its ups and downs after that, but I continued to get better. The challenging aspects of my life, such as relationships, got easier to deal with. I felt as though I had the ability to get through negative times, which I hadn't had before. There was one day in particular that changed everything for me. I was browsing in a second-hand bookshop in Norwich when I came across Living Wicca by Scott Cunningham. I had heard of Wicca before but never looked into it, and was under the popular misconception that a Wiccan was some sort of good witch. I will be speaking about the difference between Wicca and witchcraft later on in the book. Scott would become my inspiration and guide for 80% of everything I've ever done in my Wicca journey. At this point, I hadn't really touched witchcraft for a few months, and it seemed like a distant part of me. I didn't purchase the book then, but the drawing on the cover caught my eye. It was a picture of a red-haired lady holding her hands in the air either side of a goddess symbol. I got home that day, lay on my bed, and typed the words into my phone, "What is Wicca?" Yes, as typical as it sounds, that moment marked another beginning for me. I began my Wicca journey trying to learn something new about the faith every day. Nothing seemed to get in the way at this point. Wicca made me ask myself, what makes you happy? What makes you unhappy? It changed the way I saw everything. I decided to clear out anything and anyone in my life that worked against my happiness or had destructive effect on my self-worth. I also decided to apologise and make good any harmful acts that I felt I had committed towards others. I stopped tweeting about people, using negative force to fight my unhappiness, stopped speaking behind people's backs, stopped using social media as a platform to validate myself, and instead started trying to be myself. Wicca soon became something I wanted to dedicate my life to. It has brought me many benefits. I learned acceptance, kindness, and self-love. Therapy made a significant contribution to supporting my mental health, but learning about Wicca and dedicating my life to the faith helped me to see the amazing potential and compassion that surrounds us. I started my journey as an eclectic, solitary Wiccan when I was 17, and I honestly feel that from that day everything improved. My friendships, my relationships, my morals, my creativity, and my mental health. My faith helped me to accept things. Even in difficult times, I still feel at one with the universe. About a year later, I performed my ceremony of self-dedication to Wicca. Before you ask, I was very fortunate in that my parents had no problems with what I was doing. In fact, I think my mother was happy that my interests were in something that benefited my attitude and my health. Wicca felt like it was mine at that time. I didn't know anyone else who was a Wiccan. I kept it all to myself for a long while. It felt so personal, and I think that this allowed me to develop a strong bond with the faith. My YouTube channel was slowly flourishing, with the number of my followers beginning to rise, and one day I decided to mention in a video that I practiced something called Wicca. The response that I got was overwhelming. Literally thousands of people asking me to talk about the faith online and to help educate them and learn alongside them. I made my first Enchanted Endeavours episode, a series on my channel which is still running 2 years later. The first episode was about crystals, and a whole new part of my journey began. I was now in communication with a worldwide community of Wiccans with whom I continue to share a mutual educational journey. I have had so many fascinating conversations about Wicca because of this, including with one particular practitioner who has over 30 years' experience and has helped me open my eyes to new elements and not just stick with one path. It was after this conversation that I realised I'd never stop learning about Wicca, and that just made me want to work harder, which is what I'm doing still. I think that one of the most important things I ever did in Wicca was make mistakes. Mistakes help you grow, far more than your successes do. And here I am now, years later, a solitary green Wiccan who is definitely still...